One of the things that we see a lot of is we have a lot of people that have been doing it for years. This is the conversation that I have. Of course, it appeals to people that are new because it's something that's a lot easier to start out with. But what's so interesting is the people that have been doing things for years and they offer a really high ticket service. It's a really boutique agency. What they get into very easily is it becomes sort of a process that they can apply to all of their existing clients, establish more of a regular type of income. Plus, a lot of these people that have these high ticket agencies have this big chunk of people that they have that they've wanted to work with them because they typically do a good job of bringing possible prospects in, but that weren't really there. And so they've been able to go back to these people and say, but we offer this in the meantime while you're getting ready for this. And what's so great is people that have these more established agencies, they do more boutique stuff. They're able to bring on one person in their agency that can handle a chunk of these microservice clients. So on one hand, we have the folks that are brand new because this is something that's much easier. Like you don't have to be a Facebook ad expert to do this. This is something that pretty much right out of the gates, you learn the process of what we're doing. And it's really easy to explain to a business owner. It's really easy to actually implement. It's good. But on the other hand, we do see a lot of folks that have had agencies that have done really well for years. And this is just that thing that puts an extra almost, in 2 or 3 months, an extra 20, 40, $100,000 into their agency recurring because they're just taking something that an existing client base and applying the model. And their clients are very, very happy that it's a much more simple thing than what they've had to do in the past.
100%. Yeah, that makes total sense. It's perfect for the beginner because it's not overcomplicating it. It's easy to get started. And it's really good for the boutique agencies that boutique agencies have figured out lead gen. They've had to be a boutique agency and to stay afloat. So for them, all the prospects that wouldn't pay them 5, 10, 15 grand a month, right? Like they can finally actually make a sale to them and groom them and turn them into the customer that they want to be long-term for that boutique agency.
In the beginning, if you have absolutely no experience whatsoever in anything that has to do with this online world and you just want to go out, I understand that there are certain programs that do give you that one, hey, here are the campaigns for this niche, go out there. And that gives you the confidence. It almost gives you like the results to go out there and do it. But if you don't even have that, maybe in the beginning, you probably will test out the waters and see, the different niches and maybe go to a BNI and all that stuff. But I'll tell you, after I knew what I was doing, when I decided to go all in one niche, it almost like I just went direct, man. I started picking up momentum and, 3 clients turned into 12 and then 12 turned. And now I'm looking at it, at 2 years, about 2 years later, we're at 39. We're at 39 clients, niche focused. And it's a no-brainer looking at it because it's made my life a whole lot easier, building the SOPs, building the framework for our team to be able to deliver all that stuff. It gets to a point where you're almost not guessing or not scratching your head, man. Is this campaign going to work? No, you already know what's going to happen. So from the standpoint of delivery, it takes care of that. Now, from the standpoint of client acquisition, learning the language of the marketplace, learning how they do business, learning how their clients hire them to do their business or how to land better projects. I mean, I can talk to any decorative concrete guys or residential concrete guy, and I'll tell you, I'll connect with them right now like that because I'll know exactly how to talk to them. When I was as a generalist, I was leads. I was getting you more leads, more jobs, and I thought that was their language. But it comes down to that. Not everyone wants more leads. I'll tell you that right now. Not every concrete contractor wants more leads. So you're sending that email out, hey, I can get you 20, 30 leads, and I did that. And that's what got me started, but up to looking, from now to where I began in the niche, being in the niche, it definitely gives me the confidence to just be an authority in the place. And when you're an authority, I mean, people, your prospective client, your marketplace really looks up to you and they come to you and then they compare you to whoever else is coming to them selling them services. It's a big difference. That makes
that makes perfect sense. It's I know that I thought that I was smart like you, building a contractor focused agency, and I built it very quickly to 7 figures in just under 4 months. just over 84 grand a month recurring. And man, I hated the business. I hated the business that I had built. You know, from sales was difficult, churn was difficult. And it's, for me, the takeaway after building that agency, hating it, and then ultimately exiting because I just hated the business that I built. It was like, man, I got to get serious about picking a niche, and I got to niche down, and I got to focus on, you know, putting the blinders on. And when I tell people and when I coach people that, like, you got to pick a niche, man, sometimes it's hard for me to get a point across how important I really think that is. So yeah, man, I think you did a great job talking about, you know, what the rubber met the road ultimately, and your agency took off when that happened, and how fulfillment and sales and everything is so much easier if you'll just pick a niche and stay in your own lane. I say.
Okay, as you know, as I've built it and I've made my fair share of mistakes. Look, why does the whole world talk about Game of Thrones, right? It's because the content that they put out on that screen is so captivating, so engaging, so it ticks every trigger in an audience's mind, like, and you know, those scripts aren't written by accident. They're jam-packed with open loops, and it's a copywriting masterclass, like any TV series script. It really is. So again, applying that lesson to the digital world, what made the biggest difference to the success of the blog is the quality of the content that I put out. And that's often where people skip over. They kind of glaze over that, you know. They're like, right, okay, I've got it set now, I just want to build some links. And you know, I call it obsessive compulsive backlink disorder, where people are so obsessed with backlinks, they've not taken care of building a foundation that Google loves or even humans love, right? And then from the get-go, it's an uphill battle because no one wants to link to a piece of shit blog post. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so you're trying to pitch to get links, and you're making your job 10 times harder than it needs to be because you've produced a crappy piece of content. If it was actually excellent content, you wouldn't have a hard time link building. And people are often so set on getting the links that they don't take care of that foundation that Google loves or humans love. So that, I believe, is the biggest difference, or why I saw the success I did. I looked at the problems my audience had. I made content that solved them. I went engaged them with those answers, and I was just recording what I was doing. It wasn't anything special to me, you know. And I couldn't use SEO at the start. That was a challenge. So I had to rely on content quality. I don't really have a choice.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest mistake I see a lot of people. They glaze over the importance of the quality of the content. It's the heart, foundation, the soul, everything. And without it, you just can't succeed.
I love the obsessive compulsive backlink disorder.
Yeah.
OC. We'll have to link that in the show notes as the OCBD.
Yeah.
So absolutely love that. But I think that everybody skips what you just said, because it's, you know, content is king and solving problems is really the big thing, and understanding your audience.
Yeah.
I think ultimately at the end of the day, it's like, what's their pain and what's their frustration, and then how do I help them get a result? And that's what your content has to be about. And I think that people have just went so tactical focused that they've lost perspective of that key principle.
Yeah, and the you know, lots of people build Amazon affiliate sites, and like, one question I love to ask is, what value does your site offer me over and above going direct to Amazon and searching for the product? And if you stutter with an answer to that question, you're doing something wrong, you know. For me, it was price comparisons. Granted, Amazon was mostly the cheapest, but it added the value there. They couldn't have got that value on Amazon, you know. So if you're just writing for a keyword and all the rest of it, well, you got to look where can I add value, and often adding value isn't that difficult. You just got to think a little.
That's such a great question. So a lot of people, you know, and this is a mistake I made early on, you know, when you do something that can help a lot of people. When you're a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, or whatever, it feels like you want to cast the widest net. You want to say, well, I can help everyone, right? I can help all business owners, or I can help everyone, and we have that temptation. And the thing is about that is, people want to deal with someone who is a specialist, these days, especially when you think of, imagine your target market in front of that Google search box. They're not typing generalities. They're typing very, very specific things. And in fact, I saw my wife recently injured her knee, and I was sort of looking over her shoulder when she was on her iPad on the couch, and she types in knee specialist and then the area that we live in. So even though someone who maybe treats heads, necks, knees, whatever could help her, she's looking for that person who's a knee specialist in our area. And that's exactly what your target market is doing. They're looking for a specialist. So when you reel out a whole bunch of generalities and you say, we help everyone, that's equivalent to saying we help no one. So, someone has to look at your messaging and say, hey, that's for me to connect with that.
Man, it's crazy. We help a lot of agencies, and we do a lot of work on behalf of agencies for other businesses. And I see that so often. They're casting this huge wide net. We work with everybody. And again, like they really are specialists and masters to nobody then. Yes. And the value that they bring and the value of their businesses reflect that. And I'm always trying to get people to buy into the end, right? You want to sell your business, right? Like this isn't a freelance thing. Like you're not going to live forever. Are you going to hand this down? Probably not. So I find that I have to get people to buy into the end so I can get them to even think about some of the things on your one-page marketing plan.
That's so awesome. And that's something that I spent a lot of time talking about on the book is how is this thing going to end? And, I think it was Neil Armstrong said, in going to the moon, we really need to solve only two problems, right? How do we get there? And then how do we get back, right? And so many business owners in the excitement to start and build a business, they think about how to get there, how to get to success, and then how do you get back? Like, how do you exit? How do you, what are you going to do once you've gotten to where you want to go? And like you say, there's going to come a time when you get bored with the business, when you have a health problem, when you find a better opportunity, when you want to pass it on or sell it. And if you're only thinking about that at the time that you want to exit, that's really way too late, and you're going to sell it for a massive, massive discount if you can sell it at all. There are some businesses that are just not saleable because the person is the business. They don't have a business. So that's such an important part, is really getting some of those systems into place and being that specialist, So, and I believe, I think it was Ryan Dice who said the days of like the general marketing agency are over, and I 100% agree. You need to be an absolute laser targeted specialist in what you do.
Definitely. If you look at the market sophistication level, right, like it demands that. Like if you're just another generalist agency, what differentiates you from that business's, nephew that now does social media? Like why aren't they just going to give the job to them versus anybody else? So definitely, I think you got to be laser targeted for sure.
I decided to launch the podcast, became a top rated podcaster in 3 days. And dude, next week had Billie Jean as marketing on the show. And so it literally went from nobody gave me the time of day to the next week I'm interviewing celebrities and stuff. And it's just been crazy ever since, man.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. So I got to ask, how the hell did you do that?
Dope, dude. So everybody thinks like, man, I got to have a huge audience, or I got to know somebody in Apple, or, I got to have the lowdown or whatever. And here's the deal, man. Here's how anybody can rank your podcast right out the gate. It's 4 metrics that matter on Apple. It's called Apple now. It used to be iTunes. They did away with that just recently. But the only 4 metrics that matter are written reviews, ratings, subscribers, and downloads. That's it. That's the only way you're going to get ranked up. Nothing else matters. So in that case, all you need to focus on, and when you just start out in a podcast, there's a lot of people that have been podcasting for a very long time that have thousands, maybe even millions of downloads per month. So your downloads are really going to be small in comparison to those others. But the metrics that push that up the most is the written reviews. So if you focus on getting written reviews right out the gate, I've had clients that hit it within 19 reviews. Carlos Redlick of the Copy Closer podcast hit it within 19 reviews, was ranked up on iTunes in less than 48 hours. And then the most I've seen it take with any of my clients was Andrew S. Kaplan with Shatter the Mold podcast. He hit it with 56 reviews. So it doesn't take a lot. Just pump those reviews out and you'll get ranked. You won't stay there for a very long time because you're just starting out, but having that screenshot and being a top rated podcaster, you forever hold that title now. You could use that to leverage to get other guests on your show and likewise.
100%. So you're saying ultimately right out of the gate, hitting new and noteworthy, right? So ultimately written reviews is kind of the key leverage point to hit new and noteworthy.
Yeah, right out the gate, and also the top 200 charts. So, and you know, they did that algorithm change, so it's weird now. We're still figuring it all the way out, but that new and noteworthy, they seem to only have one new and noteworthy category for all podcasts, and they don't have it for all the subcategories like they used to. But yeah, you could still hit that. It's going to be a little bit harder to hit that new and noteworthy. It seems like they're kind of leaning towards favoring more of like the celebrity type shows, but you could still get in there if you're a no name at the moment.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I hit new and noteworthy, I think, right 2 weeks maybe after we launched the podcast. And I think we only had like 30 reviews, 25 or 30 reviews. And all of those were from me texting people and just asking, just launched the podcast. I need a review, please. Thank you. It was just all friends and family, right? And that got me on new and noteworthy.
Yeah, dude, and that's so smart the way you did it that way, because like so many people they'll make a post on social media like, hey, I need you guys to write and review and all this stuff, and nobody's gonna do it if you do a post. It's not personal. If you take the time and be a real human being and message somebody, hey man, I need some help. Can you do this?
Exactly.
People will do that for you.
And that's the key, like being a real human being and asking, like, I really need help. Please do this. Right? Who's going to tell you no? If you're on a text message basis with them, everybody's going to go do it.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's a dialogue that's going on, and it's not like you're asking for 10 grand for a business loan or something. You're just asking for a written review.
Yeah, I mean, I think number one, people are people. Like, it doesn't matter if they're in Pakistan or the U.S. I mean, we've just been so fortunate to grow up in a system that gives us more leverage than other countries. To put it bluntly, you know, that doesn't make us better than them. That doesn't make us smarter than them. We've just had a lot more opportunity, you know? So I think it's I agree with the statement that it's a bad thing to outsource. Like if I have a coffee shop, it would be a really bad idea for me to go and hire an agency, you know, just blanket statement. It's probably a bad idea to hire a lot of agencies in this country too. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of bad agencies out there. So that I would agree with, but I would not agree with the fact that you shouldn't be outsourcing work, especially when you're a young company, you know, like it's just like the trade-off is that if you want to outsource, you have to spend more time. But when you're a younger company, you have more time to get those people trained up. But dude, I mean, my WordPress developer two developers have been working for me now for 5 years. They show up every day. They work Saturday and Sunday. I don't tell them to, they just do it. And I paid them $1,000 flat fee a month, and they do American quality work. They're amazing. Also with the Blueprint, we just hired a support guy. He's not cheap. He's $18 an hour, but like no SQL, knows Python. You know, he can fix a lot of the tools that we have in Sheets. So if we were to get somebody locally to do that, we're talking probably like $100 an hour. So economically, especially with a young company, like it's a really good idea to do it, but you just have to make sure that you're giving them the right sandbox up front to play in, to test, to make mistakes, just like you hire somebody locally too. You know, like you have to train them, you have to work with them, you have to make sure that they understand, and it's a lot harder to do when they're not sitting next to you, but you have to put in the time to like continuously work with people, give them stuff to do, critique it, tell them what you want. Like using video is really, really important. Again, having like processes written up ahead of time is really, really important. So yeah, I mean, I'm all about outsourcing, offshoring, whatever is good for the business, really.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like my viewpoint is the same as yours. I think for me, the way that I look at it too is like, are we looking for an expert? Or are we looking for kind of to out task? Yeah. Right? Like if it's a job that anybody can do without any previous work experience, then I can save a lot of money. And people are people, man. Like how we train them and the results that they get, like that doesn't matter where they're from or you know, what country they live in. So I think a lot of systems and processes can be ran from any country. It doesn't really matter, right? Like there's some strengths and weaknesses. You know, if you're looking for like a writer, right? And they don't natively speak English. But if you're just looking for somebody to find prospects and bloggers and local media people to send emails to, what does it matter if they're in the States or they're somewhere else? So I know that definitely we couldn't have grown our agency and all of my businesses as fast as we have if it wasn't for outsourcing or outshoring. My main support guy is in the Philippines. His name's Ryan. Ryan's been with me for like 6 years. And frankly, like you'd never even know that he was from the Philippines. And like he knows like any product better than any American on our team, backwards and forwards. Like he could crush them in a test or a skills challenge like any day, and you'd have no idea where he's from. So, but I think there are cases, like you said, with like developers too. Me with developers, for example, I'm looking for the best talent that I possibly can. I don't care so much about price. So I have a developer in the States, for example, that makes like 40 grand a year. And I got a developer in Romania that makes like 120 US a year, right? Like, but there's a big, huge difference in terms of talent.
Huge difference. And I also think that the US is actually very far behind in a lot of things like development. I mean, Eastern Europe is a powerhouse for developers. You know what I'm saying? Like you outsource development over there and end up paying more for it because their skill set is, I mean, like all of our favorite SEO tools are not US tools also. That's important to know. You know what I mean? Like all their developers, their whole staff is from over there, you know? So I agree. Especially when it comes to things like design, I'm always willing to pay higher to get it done right the first time. Like that's the thing too, is that like my developers are doing like front-end WordPress. They're not like building applications. They could, but I'm just building so many different sites and constantly adding sites that like I like to have developers on retainer that are just like, I talk to my developers more than anything because they basically will manage all my sites and presence and all that stuff. But 100% agree, man. I think becoming less taboo. I think it's a bad idea for just an everyday business owner to outsource work. But if you're an agency, like you're not going to make ends meet at first if you don't, unless you're so good that you can charge a couple $100 an hour and hire all local. But
another one that I'm thinking here is the concept of Disney dreamstorming. So Disney dreamstorming is a process that I do. In fact, it's so integral to the success of my business that my very first podcast episode ever was on this concept, which is to remember that whenever planning a project by myself or with my team or partners is to break it out into 3 extremely distinct frames whereby you're either dreaming, planning, or critiquing. You're never doing 2 at the same time, and you give equal weight to all of them. So in a quick example would be, you and I want to start a business. We're going to create a new software to do XYZ. So the first thing we're going to do is understand we have to step into this dreamer's state of mind, or this dreamer's office, and the only thing we're allowed to do here is have fun, dream, and imagine what would it be like if it was fully baked and amazing. But there's only 2 rules. We cannot plan it here, and we cannot critique it because we're not in that frame of mind. And when the minute you start to plan and critique a dream at the same time, you start to really water it down because you're like, oh shoot, what's going on? And then that leads to kind of like idea abortion. Right? The next step is, once you've kind of got a cool dream in mind, you step into this role of planning it out. Like, this is the realist frame. By the way, the reason I call this Disney dreamstorming is it was modeled after the way Walt Disney built his empire. He literally did these things. So in the planning office, there's, you and I just created this idea for this super cool software that runs your entire business without ever lifting a finger, right? Like artificial intelligence, superhuman computing. And we're like, all right, well, what would it take to get this done? How might we do this? And by the way, the concept of how might we is from design thinking, and it's also used here because you're not saying how do we do this, you're saying how might we do this? How might we accomplish this? Because when you're saying how might we, it kind of removes the necessity to have it like be real, like, well, we might do this, we might do that, and it just opens up, the ability to brainstorm. Now, when you're planning it out, there's only 2 rules. Don't add new stuff to the dream, and don't critique it yet. Because third, when you're all done with the dream and all done with the plan, you do what most entrepreneurs do not do, because it's no fun, which is you give equal weight to the critic, the spoiler, Patty Pooper. You go in there and you go, listen, the goal of this now, so if you and I were on this team together, we're going to step into this other office in another setting, and we're going to say, look, we've got a kick-ass dream and a plan that just might work, but we need to create insurance. There's a lot of things we may have overlooked in our delusional optimism that every entrepreneur has to have. So what are we missing? And you're going to ask questions like, do we have enough capital? Do we have enough time? What are the resources? Well, how will this take time and materials away from what we're already trying to accomplish? Does my wife want me to spend more time with her, and I'm coming up with this new idea that's going to take me away from that? You can probably guess what the 2 rules here are. Don't add more stuff to the dream, and don't solve the critic's questions while you're in the critic's office. Like, just wait. Wait till you get out of there, and then take it back to either the dreamer or the doer and go, all right, those are some really good points. Thank you, critic. Namaste. And namaste over here and fix this problem, right? Like, how can I solve it using a different mindset than the one who came up with the problem? And by doing this, you systematically operate at a much higher mental level, and you're able to come up with much better ideas. And by the way, we talked about like ideation. This is part of the ideation process. It's starting with a problem and then going through a framework so that you can create better ideas, more fully baked, that are not either diluted by critiquing it before it really gets started, or not so optimistically delusional that you just ignore with all the critics' responses that are going to derail you. And I've done that before. I've gotten really optimistic and I was like, I'm just going to do this anyway, and I put blinders on, and the business fell apart because of the things that would have been easily preventable had I done this process on it.
100%. And I think that what's even worse though is the majority of people that I've spoken to that are starting out are really struggling to understand the concept of what is actually ROI for their customer, right? So they try to focus, like, let's just keep using the SEO as an example. They're like, oh, we'll get you these rankings, or oh, we'll get you this traffic increase. And all of that is well and good and can be built into your KPIs, but realistically, there's only one thing that the business owner cares about, and that is that they're ROI positive, right? And if you frame that right and you interview the business owner right, then you can understand how soon they need to be ROI positive. How deep is that pocket and how long are they willing to work with you? Because SEO does take time, and it does take time to achieve results, and we all know that. But you need to be really realistic about, what is the lifetime value of those customers that you're bringing him? What products or services does the customer need to sell in order to actually get that max ROI, right? And so I think it's so important to really interview your prospect to identify if they can actually be ROI positive, right? And then it's also important to review with them if they are even, if they're good at selling, because ultimately you can get them as many phone calls as you like. If they suck at closing those phone calls or closing those email leads or whatever it might be, then they're going to be ROI negative no matter what you do.
100%. 100%. And I think just to add to that, like, you got to ask about capacity, right? Because if you're doing a good job for them and you blow up their marketing like they ask you to, you could very well bury the business. I'll never forget, probably within my first 10 clients, I basically put a lady out of business. Where she was doing well. We were managing her AdWords, and she came to me, and after we had like quadrupled her traffic, she came to me and was like, Joe, I need you to double the business in the next 6 months. I don't really know how that's possible, but I came back with a plan. We got damn near close, and we basically put her out of business because we made every little microscopic problem, like we magnified that, and it just blew up in her face. And it was an utter nightmare. So I think I agree with everything you said, Jonathan. I would say that you got to also figure out what the constraints are in the business so that you can try to help the business owner avoid those, or it can really go bad.
Well, and how willing they are to change. This is one of the reasons why, as an agency, we don't take on reputation management clients. Is quite simply because a lot of business owners are not willing to change because, and I'm sure we've all been there, we know everything better, and so in rep management, I found it very frustrating that people would come to me and say, look, I need to bury this piece of news. And we're like, okay, that's fine. But have you actually changed the thing that's led to this piece of news being in the search results? Like, no, not really. Like, I just want this to disappear. And it's like, yeah, but that's kind of frustrating because, you know, you're just going to basically be an arsehole to other people, you know,
Exactly.
and that's it. And so for that reason, I think that sort of coming back to the agency model, I think it's really important, like you said, to identify how willing they are to scale, but also how communicative and how willing they are to scale. You know, once things get tough and they need to put some extra hours in order to fulfill the demand that you've created as a marketer, no matter what type of marketing you do, it's really important that they are willing to work with you to make those improvements. But I also think that if you are highly communicative and you are super honest with your prospects or your clients, then, you know, you'll soon find yourself in a position where if things don't go to plan, you can actually work with that client to improve things and they won't just abandon you and drop off. You know, we have a complete like no BS policy in our business, and we try to always be as absolutely transparent and honest as we can. And when things don't go our way, like, you know, you sign on a client and in the first 60 days of the campaign, they get hit with an algo update and lose half their traffic. You know, we had that happen. Actually, in the June update, we had a couple of clients in the medical field lost half their traffic. And at that point, we have to be super realistic with them and say, look, this is going to take some time to repair, and it's going to hurt, but we're going to do everything that we can to help you get back to that. And, you know, if you're willing to work with us, then we might be able to rebuild that. Now, the alternative is to just basically hide and just say nothing and just send the report over that has the massive red arrows and just pray for the best. And before you know it, those clients have gone to a different agency. In reality, you know, it's probably outside of your control what happens to a website after an algo update on a brand new signed up client. But the communication is really ultimately what's going to keep them on board.
If you'd have asked me a year ago, I would have said, start simple with search because it works. And it's really easy to track and we get great results on it. Fast forward to now, I would say where possible, don't just sell search. The reason being the buyer's journey has evolved dramatically and continues to evolve far more rapidly than probably any point in history. The way mobile has taken over, the way algorithms are increasingly affecting all our lives, the way we use our mobiles where we're in the restaurant, the restroom, you know, a passenger seat of a car means that you cannot just run a search campaign today. Or at least you can, and some people do, but it's significantly better if you don't. Couple it with retargeting, which, just to explain the language for anybody who hasn't heard it, retargeting is showing ads to people who visited your website after they have left on other platforms. So you're showing ads on other websites or perhaps on YouTube or on Gmail or on Facebook or Instagram after they've been to your website. We've all had that happen to us. Just go on Amazon today if you haven't and look at something unusual. It'll follow you around the internet for the next few weeks. That's retargeting in action. You can't rely on the one and done approach anymore. You know, you might have got that person who clicked your ad while they were waiting for a bus, waiting for a train, in a moment, filling time while something was on their mind. And by the time they then hit their desktop or their iPad or whatever to actually follow through properly, you're a distant memory. You have to be now retargeting them to be there in those moments where they're actually giving proper consideration to a thought process they started earlier on. And so we now find that wherever possible, our go-to is a combination of both. And you can sell them either way around, actually. You can lead with the retargeting, you can lead with PPC. You can do it either way, but put them together and you've got a hugely powerful combination.
And then in your point of view, Rob, what kind of markup should an agency be looking for? Kind of minimum, maximum, just kind of any raw thoughts? And I know that, like, don't sugarcoat this. I know
for you and I, our opinions differ a little bit on the subject. So, just from your gut reaction, like, what do you believe in that regards?
So let's say somebody was coming to us. Our starting price is $295 a month. Okay, that's what we start at. Well, forget currencies. Let's just keep it simple. It's $295 a month, roughly. If you're a brand new agency, I know people selling that at $500 a month, so they're making 40%. I wouldn't recommend that. It's too tight. That gives you very little money to service that client. Think of that 40% has to do two jobs. It has to pay you in terms of profit, and it has to pay the service cost of you maintaining that relationship. And $200 ain't going to do it, in my opinion. So you need to be pushing 600, 700 and upwards. And once you're into those kind of numbers, I always relate it to the kind of supply client that you're working with, though. I think you and I have had this conversation. We do agree. You can charge a lawyer more than a florist. Fundamentally, the service may be similar in terms of delivery, but the value to the end user is different. And ultimately, the end user is going to make a decision as to whether they keep or kill your services.
Yep.
So it has to be related to their value. So that $300 we charge may well turn to a $1,000 invoice for a lawyer. It may well turn into a $600 invoice for a florist. I think the most extreme one I have is I know one of our agency partners who marks us up by 80%. So we are 20% of his price point and has no problem because of the market he sells into and the service he provides.
And obviously it's different too. If you have like a supply chain of leads coming to you, so to speak, right? Like you're going to have fundamentally like a different type of business set up. Even if let's say selling one to many in the florist niche, that might be fun for you. And you're taking less of a cut, but you're dealing with volume and you set expectations with the client in terms of how often you're going to talk and everything as such. But you might have you might not, right? Like if you don't have those relationships and you're selling one-on-one, you got to take into consideration, like you said, your but then also, or your commission for selling the deal, or somebody in your teams, and then actually maintaining that relationship as well. That markup has to be there. And so if you have to choose to go after the florist or the lawyer, I surely hope that you would choose to go after the lawyer just fundamentally because you have the opportunity to make a whole lot more revenue, right? Without any other factors, like let's pick a niche where we can do the best in, right? Let's pick a niche where we can make $750 a month markup on each client or more versus, $250.
Yeah, so there's a lot of Facebook agencies, so to speak, these days. When I first started, it was just a social ads agency that happens to do Facebook. Now I get classified as a Facebook agency just because I run Facebook ads. And so what I find is that a lot of the newbies in the space, they're just leading with the old school internet marketer, money signs, right? I'm going to help you make $10,000, $20,000. And you're going to get plenty of clients doing that, but those guarantees can only take you so far. And that's another thing. I can't guarantee you make that money unless the funnel and the business is operating at a way where it's like, I can close these sales efficiently, your team can fulfill, we get testimonials and social proof, and thus the chain effect happens where it's like we can bring in more people that way. A lot of agencies these days don't even consider that. It's just close the sale, get the work done. Some never even get the work done. And it's rinse and repeat. So it's a lot of churn and burn. And it puts a bad light on my business because I get classified with these people and then I have to do something different than what they had done for this person previously. So I get a lot of clients that are previously burned. And so what we do when we position ourselves in front of these potential clients is just we lead with results, right? So we put out the case studies and we break them down in depth. Right? What was done? How was it done? Why do we do it this way? What mistakes did we make? And here was the result from it. But while we're putting out these case studies, you talk about my referral game is like, it's really on point. It's because I'm trying to educate people before they even work with me as to why they need to be looking out for certain things when hiring an agency, right? So how am I communicating or educating you prior to the process beginning? Am I giving you feedback on your offer? Am I giving you any sort of critiques around the copy used in your email or in the actual program itself that you're delivering to people? I don't feel most agencies do that. They don't really dig into your stuff. They just go, hey, it's $5K, you pay it, and they just promote whatever you got without ever looking at your material. and I know you've been through this. There are some people's courses or coaching programs where they're actually not even ready for market consumption. They have to be refined and tweaked a little more before someone buys it. And yet these ad agencies are coming out there saying, oh yeah, no problem. We'll get you 10x your return. And they're making these false promises, and it makes everyone look bad because they don't deliver. Yep. And so we're taking the opposite approach. I'll break down all your stuff. I'll educate you. I'll tell you, no, I can't help you, right? I'm not going to take everybody. And I think that's more of a refreshing approach. Even though it's common sense to us, to the market, it's not, because the narrative changed in the last couple of years. So
and the sophistication level, so to speak, of the industry has changed, right? Like, we have people jumping in all the time. You know, we constantly, 9 out of 10 customers feel like they've been ripped off by some type of marketing agency in the past. So because of that, like, we have to do business differently. And I think if you're trying to play the same game that you were 7, 8, 10 years ago when we first met, it's not going to work very well. And you're going to be spinning your wheels as an agency. So I recommend that everybody becomes an expert in something, right? Like, you went really, really deep with Facebook, and then even based upon the year and what's really working for you and your business, you know, you're specializing on e-com or on high ticket or these different places because you know that you can get great results. So that's fantastic. And I definitely recommend that everybody, you know, pick a niche and go deep in that niche and become the expert because at that point, like, you can do things that don't scale well. You can blow up Facebook ads. You can do what you do, and you can give away a bunch of stuff for free because you know that, like, you're going to get your money back in the long term.